Hey, listen, speaking of AI, one of the things I read recently was a very interesting quote and perspective from a gentleman who's in the Department of Education nationally, Roberto Rodriguez, the Assistant Secretary for Planning, Evaluation, and Policy Development at the Education Department. The story opens up with listen, school districts that choose not to engage with artificial intelligence will leave their students unprepared for a future in which the technology is expected to dominate. A key U.S. Department of Education official said at a November 14th event in Washington. Listen, quote, I've had conversations with some educators who have said, well, I don't quite know what to make of AI. I'm not well prepared to really address it. So I'm not going to so I'm going to sit this one out. Want to sit this one out and we'll see what comes next, end quote. And this is not one of those that you sit out, said Roberto Rodriguez. He said, listen, we're at a point where your kids, now I'm going to go back into this quote, your kids aren't sitting it out. Their lives aren't sitting it out. And in fact, you're going to disadvantage students and create greater inequities by trying to sit AI out, end quote. Let me just repeat that. Your kids aren't sitting out. Their lives aren't sitting out. And in fact, you're going to disadvantage students and create greater inequities by trying to sit AI out. And I think his point is so well taken. We've seen over the years a number of places where, greater inequities were created because of a lack of adoption in terms of what's going on out there. And I mean, you can look at a bunch of innovations. Actually, I found a chart that's really interesting, starting back from the telephone up through the internet, et cetera, that shows the adoption curve. And most people are familiar with the 5 phases of adoption, right? There's the innovators, the person who created, the early adopters, the early majority. That's when you start to get to the top of the hump, the late majority, and then the laggards, right? Somewhere between that late majority and the laggards, you really begin to lose, if you will, the getting in on the goodness of things, right? It often turns into, man, you've basically missed the opportunity. And so his point's not lost on me. I would offer 3 things in terms of how we think about this, because when I look at these curves, it's very interesting. Telephone, as an example, started 1900s, took to about 1930 to get to 40% adoption. Think about that, 30 years to get to 40% adoption. Clothes washer took only about 10 years to get to, about 10, 15 years as well. But other thing, color TVs, man, took less than 10 years for people to get to that color TV. Same thing with the internet. Internet was not even 10 years. And a couple other items took a little longer, but the items we seem to be entertained by seem to go quicker. VCR was like 2 years, okay, to get to 60% adoption, 2 to 3 years. And so I just want to throw this out. It's really how we approach things and how our mind works sometimes. And listen, I'm human too. I mean, certain new things you may shy away from. Not that you're afraid of them, you just may be a little apprehensive. But here is a framework to think about, because I love frameworks, about how to think about new innovation, so on and so forth, particularly when you take Mr. Rodriguez's point into consideration. We can't afford more inequalities. We can't afford for our children to fall behind. We can't afford as adults to fall behind. We're in competitive marketplaces when we think about our careers and so on and so forth. So let me give you 3 things to consider. First and foremost, before dismissing it, do your own research. It's okay to watch YouTube videos that people created. And right now, I think we're all inundated with ads from people talking about how they've created an AI tool or learning. Listen, you can look at that, but also do your own research, right? Get to the core research, whether it's reading something, listening to a specific podcast, doing YouTube video views, doing a free course on one of the online schools, right? Do your own research about what AI is and what it is not. And that's, I'm sorry, this is with anything, not just specific to AI. This is just about adopting things, period. Second, assess and discern. So assess what it is. Is it something I need to be concerned about? Now that I better understand it, what do I do with it? And pray about it, right? If it's something that's troubling you and you have apprehension, pray about why you even have the apprehension. Do some need drills right there on that. And then last but not least, chew the meat and spit out the bones. That simply means use what's applicable and discard what is not applicable. Chew the meat, spit out the bones, right? So again, starting from a place of maybe apprehensive, maybe just totally discrediting it or disregarding it. No. Go through the 3 steps. Do your research, do the fact checking, do some reading, some watching, taking a course. 2, assess and discern. 3, chew the meat, spit out the bones.